Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Today we're going to be diving deep into BRICS. A group of nations, you could say, is making waves on the global stage. Whether you're a UPSC aspirant and getting ready for that GS2 paper, or a student just curious about international relations, or honestly anyone that wants to stay informed, this deep dive is for you. Think of BRICS like a club with only 5 members.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, just 5.
Okay.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But this club has the potential to completely rewrite the rulebook on global power.
Yeah, what's really fascinating about BRICS is that it's not just some theoretical idea, right?
Right.
This is a group of nations with a combined population of 41% of all of humanity,
Wow.
27% of the world's landmass, and a combined GDP PPP of over $40 trillion. So that's a serious chunk of the global economy. And it explains why so many people are paying attention to what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like they're holding this giant magnifying glass up to the changing global landscape,
Yeah.
showing us how power is shifting and these new players are emerging. So how did this all begin? Was it some secret meeting in a smoky back room?
Not quite. The story actually starts with a Goldman Sachs economist,
Okay.
fellow by the name of Jim O'Neill, who coined the term BRIC back in 2001
Oh, wow, way back then.
to highlight the economic potential of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And back then, it was really just an economic concept. But these nations really saw an opportunity to kind of forge a new path together.
So it started as like an economic club, and
Yeah.
then they decided to like make it official.
Exactly. They started holding these informal diplomatic meetings. And by 2009, they held their first official summit in Russia.
Okay.
And then South Africa joined the party in 2010,
Oh, okay.
turning BRIC into BRICS, adding another continent to their roster.
So they're not just meeting for like tea and biscuits. What are they actually doing together?
They're cooperating on multiple levels. So economically, they're boosting trade and investment flows between the countries. They're working on agreements to create more integrated markets.
Okay.
So think of it as building bridges for businesses and goods to flow more easily between their economies.
Yeah, it sounds like they're laying the groundwork for a pretty powerful economic bloc. But it's not all about money, is it?
Not at all. BRICS is also deeply invested in people-to-people exchanges.
Oh, interesting.
So they've set up forums for young diplomats, parliamentarians, trade unions, civil society groups, and even the media.
Wow.
The goal is to really build those strong cultural ties alongside the economic ones.
It's like they're weaving this tapestry of connections.
Yeah.
Bringing people from all different walks of life together. And of course, we can't forget about the whole political and security dimensions, right?
Absolutely. BRICS is actively engaged in discussions about achieving global peace, security, and cooperation. They're pushing for a more equitable world order, one where the voices of emerging nations are heard loud and clear.
So they're challenging the old guard. The traditional power structures that have kind of been dominating the global stage for so long.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. BRICS is a sign that the balance of power globally is shifting, and they're determined to be a part of shaping this new world order.
Let's kind of zoom in on how they operate. It's not just about holding these summits and issuing statements, right?
No, they're much more strategic than that. BRICS works on 3 distinct levels.
Okay.
The first is that formal diplomatic engagement between the governments.
Uh-huh.
The second is engagement through government-affiliated institutions, so things like state-owned enterprises, business councils.
Okay.
And then finally, there's engagement at the civil society level through these people-to-people initiatives.
So they're covering all the bases,
Mhm.
from top-level diplomacy to those grassroots connections. It's a pretty comprehensive approach. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. These global institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. How does BRICS fit into all of that?
Well, this is where the 2008 financial crisis really becomes a pivotal moment.
Mhm.
That crisis really exposed some of the vulnerabilities of the existing global financial system,
Right.
and it gave BRICS an opportunity to push for some change.
So they saw a crack in the system and they said, hey, let's use this to our advantage.
In a way, yes. They argued that these global institutions, which were largely designed by Western powers after World War II, needed to reflect the new economic realities of the 21st century, particularly the rising influence of emerging markets.
And did they manage to make any headway with that?
They did. In 2010, BRICS successfully pushed for reforms to the IMF's quota system,
Okay.
which determines voting power within the institution. And this reform gave emerging markets, including BRICS nations, a greater voice in IMF decisions.
So that's a concrete example of their growing influence.
What-
It's like they're flexing their collective muscle on the global stage. And they didn't stop there, did they? They went on to create their own institutions,
They
right?
did. Two key initiatives really stand out: the New Development Bank, or NDB,
Okay.
and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, or CRA.
Okay, let's start with the NDB. What's the story behind that?
The NDB is headquartered in Shanghai, and it was created to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in BRICS countries and other developing nations.
Okay.
It's essentially an alternative to the World Bank, but with a focus on the specific needs of the developing world.
So it's like they're creating this parallel financial system, one that's more attuned to the priorities of emerging economies. And what about the CRA? What role does that play?
The CRA is like a financial safety net for BRICS members. It provides short-term liquidity support through currency swaps.
Okay.
So think of it as a way for BRICS countries to help each other out if they face kind of a sudden financial crunch,
Okay.
without having to rely on those traditional institutions like the IMF,
Right.
which often come with a lot of strings attached.
Yeah, it's like they're building their own financial fortress, a way to protect themselves from the volatility of the global economy. Now let's shift our focus a bit to India. What does BRICS membership actually mean for India specifically?
Well, for India, BRICS is a valuable platform for consultation and cooperation on a whole range of issues. So we're talking economic matters, international terrorism, climate change, food security, energy security, and, of course, reforms to global governance. It's a forum where India can engage with other major powers on an equal footing and work together to address these shared challenges.
It's like a high-level brainstorming session where
Yeah.
India can contribute its ideas and its perspectives to shaping the global agenda.
Exactly. And by working within BRICS, India can leverage the collective strength of the group to kind of push for its own interests as well.
Okay.
For example, India has been trying to gain entry into the Nuclear Suppliers Group, which is a prestigious club that controls access to nuclear technology. BRICS provides a platform for India to build support for its bid among these other influential nations.
So BRICS membership amplifies India's voice on the world stage.
It does. It allows India to transition from being a rule taker to a rule maker in global affairs. India is not content with simply accepting the existing global order anymore. It wants to actively shape that order, and BRICS gives it a powerful tool to do so.
It sounds like BRICS is helping India step into a real leadership role on the global stage.
That's a great way to put it.
But we can't ignore the fact that BRICS isn't without its challenges, right?
Of course not. There are internal tensions, disagreements on certain issues, and these ever-present geopolitical realities that these nations have to navigate.
So it's not all sunshine and roses within BRICS.
Definitely not. But that's the reality of any multilateral organization. The key is to find ways to manage those differences
Right.
and focus on the common ground that brought them together in the first place.
So BRICS is a work in progress, but it's a work in progress with enormous potential to reshape the global landscape.
It is.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into BRICS.
It does. Join us in part 2 as we delve deeper into the opportunities and challenges facing BRICS in a multipolar world, and how they can navigate the complexities of global governance.
Welcome back to our exploration of BRICS. As we kind of dive deeper, it's clear that their vision for a multipolar world is one of the most intriguing aspects of this alliance.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, hey, the world is changing, and we need a system that reflects that change. They're not content with just being bystanders. They want to have a seat at the table where those rules of the game are being written.
That's a great way to frame it. You know, for decades, global governance has been dominated by a handful of really powerful nations, often with a Western-centric perspective.
Yeah.
And BRICS is challenging that status quo,
Yeah.
advocating for a more inclusive and equitable system where the voices of these emerging economies are given their due weight.
It's like they're shaking the foundations of the old order, pushing for a system that's more representative of that diverse tapestry of nations across the globe. But as with any ambitious endeavor, there are bound to be some hurdles along the way, right? Absolutely. One of the key challenges facing BRICS is this question of representation. To truly embody the aspirations of emerging markets, they need to look beyond their current 5-member structure.
So they need to expand their membership, bring in more countries from different regions to make BRICS a truly pan-continental force.
Precisely. A more diverse membership would not only enhance BRICS's legitimacy on the global stage,
Right.
but it would also enrich their deliberations with a wider range of perspectives and experiences.
It's like building a more robust and vibrant ecosystem where diverse voices can contribute to a richer and more nuanced understanding of global issues. But expanding membership also comes with its own set of complexities, doesn't
It does. Managing the interests of a larger and more diverse group can be a delicate balancing act. Reaching consensus on some of these complex issues might become more challenging, and internal disagreements could potentially slow down their progress.
Yeah, it's like navigating a ship through a crowded harbor. The more vessels you add to the mix, the more carefully you need to coordinate to avoid those collisions.
That's a great analogy. Another challenge facing BRICS is the need to broaden their agenda beyond their current focus areas. So while climate change and development finance are crucial issues,
Right.
BRICS really needs to tackle a wider range of these global challenges if they want to truly solidify their relevance in the 21st century.
So they need to expand their horizons and delve into areas like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, global health pandemics, the future of work, those issues that are really shaping the future of humanity.
Exactly. These are really complex and interconnected challenges that require collaborative solutions.
Uh-huh.
And BRICS has the potential to be a leader in shaping those solutions, but they need to demonstrate their ability to engage with this broader spectrum of issues.
Right. But expanding their agenda might also lead to more internal friction, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
Different nations within BRICS might have conflicting priorities and interests when it comes to these complex global issues.
That's a valid concern. Take, for example, the issue of artificial intelligence. Some BRICS nations might prioritize its economic potential,
Uh-huh.
while others might focus on the ethical implications and the potential risks associated with unchecked AI development.
Yeah, it's like a family trying to decide on a vacation destination.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own preferences, and reaching a consensus can be tricky.
Exactly. And let's not forget the elephant in the room, the geopolitical tensions that exist between some BRICS members. The border standoff between India and China, for instance, really highlights those real politic challenges that they need to navigate.
So internal conflicts and disagreements can undermine their ability to present a united front on the global stage.
Absolutely. These internal divisions can erode their credibility and make it difficult for them to act decisively on these pressing global issues.
It's like trying to push a car uphill with everyone pushing in different directions.
Yeah.
You might end up going nowhere.
Precisely. But despite all of these challenges, BRICS has also shown a remarkable ability to find that common ground and work together on issues where their interests align.
So it's kind of a mixed bag, a delicate balance between cooperation and competition.
That's a great way to put it.
So how can BRICS overcome these hurdles and truly become a leading force for positive change in this multipolar world?
Yeah.
What are the keys to kind of unlocking their full potential?
Well, firstly, they need to prioritize open and honest dialogue.
Okay.
Building trust and understanding between the members is absolutely crucial, especially when you're dealing with some of these sensitive issues. They need to create a space where they can openly address their differences and work towards finding that common ground.
Yeah, it's like any successful relationship. You need to be able to have those tough conversations and work through disagreements constructively.
Exactly. And beyond dialogue, BRICS also needs to get a little more creative and innovative in its approach to cooperation.
Oh,
It's not just about those formal summits and agreements.
right.
It's about finding new and dynamic ways to work together on concrete projects that benefit all the members.
So think joint ventures, research collaborations, cultural exchange programs, those people-to-people initiatives, that multi-pronged approach to kind of deepen their ties and build a more solid foundation for cooperation.
Precisely. The more they can collaborate on those tangible projects that deliver those concrete results,
Yeah.
the stronger their bonds will become, and the more effectively they'll be able to tackle those global challenges together.
It's like building a bridge. The more solid the foundation and the more interconnected those supports, the stronger and more resilient that bridge will be.
Another key to unlocking BRICS' potential lies in tapping into their shared values. So, despite their differences, BRICS members do share some fundamental beliefs,
Okay.
such as a commitment to multilateralism, a desire for a more equitable global order, and a belief in the importance of sustainable development. They need to leverage these shared values as a source of unity and strength.
So it's about finding the common threads that weave their diverse tapestry together, reminding themselves of what unites them even when things get tough.
Exactly. And they also need to embrace a more flexible and adaptive approach. So the global landscape is constantly evolving,
Mhm.
and BRICS needs to be nimble and responsive to these changes.
So they need to be like a chameleon, able to adapt to their surroundings and change their colors to blend in and thrive in those different environments.
That's a great way to visualize it. Adaptability and flexibility will be crucial for BRICS if they want to navigate the complexities of a multipolar world and achieve their ambitious goals.
So BRICS is a force to be reckoned with.
Hmm.
But their success hinges on their ability to overcome those internal challenges,
Yeah.
broaden their horizons, and embrace a more agile and cooperative approach. Now, in part 3 of our deep dive, we'll explore those concrete steps BRICS is taking to reshape global governance and the institutions that shape our world. Welcome back, explorers. In this final part of our BRICS journey, we're going to examine how they're tackling the big leagues of global governance, those institutions that really set the rules and shape the international landscape.
For decades, global governance has been dominated by institutions like the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. And while these organizations play important roles, they were largely shaped by Western powers in the aftermath of World War II.
So the world has changed so much since then. With these emerging economies like the BRICS nations rising in prominence, it's only natural that they would want a greater say in how global affairs are managed right.
Absolutely. BRICS isn't just knocking on the doors of these institutions. They're actively pushing for reforms to make them more representative, more inclusive, and more responsive to the needs of the developing world.
So it's not about, dismantling the system. It's about making it work for everyone, not just a select few.
Precisely. They recognize that these institutions need to adapt to the changing realities of a multipolar world where power is more diffused and emerging economies have a much greater voice.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. What are some specific examples of BRICS really shaking things up in the realm of global governance?
One of the most significant examples is their push for reform of the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. As we talked about earlier, BRICS successfully advocated for changes to the IMF's quota system back in 2010, which increased the voting power of emerging economies.
Right, that was a major victory for them, demonstrating their ability to influence decision-making within these established institutions. But they're not resting on their laurels, are they?
Not at all. They continue to advocate for further IMF reforms, arguing that it needs to be more responsive to the economic vulnerabilities of developing countries and less beholden to those Western interests.
So they're not just settling for a seat at the table. They want to make sure their voices are heard loud and clear.
Exactly. And it's not just about reforming existing institutions. BRICS is also forging its own path by creating alternative institutions.
Like building a parallel universe of global governance.
Well, not quite a parallel universe, but certainly a different approach. The New Development Bank, or NDB, is a prime example.
Oh yeah, remind us about the NDB. What makes it so different?
The NDB is headquartered in Shanghai, and it's specifically designed to finance infrastructure and sustainable development projects in BRICS countries and other emerging economies. It's essentially an alternative to the World Bank, but with a focus on the unique needs and priorities of the developing world.
So it's like a tailor-made financial institution for emerging economies, one that understands their challenges and aspirations.
Precisely. And the NDB is already making a tangible impact, having approved loans for a diverse range of projects, from renewable energy initiatives in India to transportation infrastructure development in Brazil.
And then there's the contingent reserve arrangement, the CRA.
Ah, yes, the CRA. This is BRICS's financial safety net, designed to provide short-term liquidity support to member countries facing balance of payments difficulties.
So if a BRICS nation kind of hits a rough patch financially, the CRA can step in and help stabilize the situation.
Exactly. Think of it as a rainy day fund, a pool of resources that BRICS countries can tap into if they encounter a sudden financial crunch, without having to rely on those traditional institutions like the IMF, which often come with some pretty stringent conditions.
Yeah, it's like having that reliable friend you can turn to in times of need, someone who understands your situation and is willing to lend a helping hand. So BRICS is pushing for reforms, creating new institutions, and establishing these financial mechanisms for mutual support. That's a pretty comprehensive approach to reshaping global governance, isn't it?
It is, and it's important to remember that their goal isn't to overthrow the existing order or create chaos. They're not looking to replace the UN or dismantle the IMF. Their aim is to make the system more inclusive, more equitable, and ultimately more effective in addressing the complex challenges that are facing the world today.
So it's about evolution, not revolution. working within the system to improve it.
Exactly. BRICS is pragmatic in its approach. They understand that global governance is this complex ecosystem, and that change takes time, patience, and strategic engagement.
As we wrap up our BRICS deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners, especially those interested in global affairs, international relations, or just understanding how the world works?
I think the most important takeaway is that BRICS is a force to be reckoned with. They're not just a talking shop. They're actively shaping the global agenda and pushing for a more inclusive and multipolar world order.
They're also just this fascinating example of how countries with diverse backgrounds and interests can come together to find that common ground and work towards shared goals.
Absolutely. And their journey really highlights the increasing importance of emerging economies in shaping the future of our world. Their voices are being heard, and their actions are having a tangible impact on that global stage.
BRICS is a story of ambition, collaboration, and a real determination to reshape the global landscape. It's a story that's still unfolding, full of complexities and challenges, but also just brimming with possibilities. It's been an incredible journey exploring this dynamic group of nations.
It has.
And for our listeners, this is just the beginning. I encourage you to continue exploring, to delve deeper into the world of BRICS, stay informed about their initiatives, and engage in some thoughtful discussions about their role in shaping our world.
Great advice.
So keep those thinking caps on, stay curious, and join us next time for another fascinating deep dive into a complex and intriguing topic.
Thanks for listening.